What's going on, Tamers? East here, and we are deep in the EX10 Sinister Order set over here in Asia with the third week of events just wrapping up. But more important than that, this third week was actually the change over for the new pricing for local events, and the promo cards that have come out of that new pricing are pretty fantastic. We got a new Justimon Excel arm alongside the new DM Kimeramon, and there's a really cool array of options in what the release of the Sealed Knight Digital Gate Open, which I think is on everybody's radar right now for just how good that card is generically, as well as some new support for Millenniumon and Kimeramon as far as the DM deck is concerned, an insane synthetic monster. This new pricing is so interesting to players that it has brought out folks in flocks for last week's events, and as a result we have a ton of results to take a look at. And while week 2 saw some of the villains from the EX10 set start to take a backseat to more popular choices like Omnimon and Gammamon, aka the heroes, this week might have some surprising results because I'm also a little confused about what's happening right now. And so to learn more, let's take a look at some event results, a couple of key takeaways, and a closer look at some of the decks that topped over the course of the past week. So looking at how the dominoes fell, Magnetic Dramon is still taking top spots with a commanding 13 wins under his belt for last week. But what's honestly more interesting to me anyway is at the ultimate level where you see decks that are pretty much mainstays in things of Gammamon, alongside other newcomers like Bagara Army and Lusamon. Lusamon, much like how the deck plays itself, has been a slow starter where week 1 we saw no results from it and then last week just one, and this week it looks like things have exploded for that deck. Maybe it's worth taking a longer look at Lusamon, because even at my locals this week it won the locals event and it toppled the likes of Royal Knights, Magnetic Dramon, Omnimon, just to name a few. Bagara Army's also been putting up a lot of numbers, and this one generally has me scratching my head. I'm happy to see this as a person who's been playing this deck almost exclusively since the set dropped, but this is a hard deck to play. And when you're going through so many games against lots of different decks, and you've got so many decisions to make, because you can also play Digimon for reduced cost alongside just evolving, there's so many choices to make, and it's just really hard to stay at 100% the whole time. I think the deck genuinely has some teeth, but I'm wondering if some of the tax-like effects that the deck has caught folks slipping up this week. I'm really interested to see if the popularity of this deck continues within the next couple of weeks going into BT23 as well. While it seems like right now a lot of these villain decks are still receiving a lot of love, keep in mind that tried and true decks like Gammamon, Omnimon, Royal Knights, and even Galaxy Toolbox are still great tools in the game. Speaking of the Galaxy Toolbox, actually, shoutouts to Gary Young, who won the Philippine Regionals that happened last weekend with the deck. Keen-eyed and longtime watchers will actually remember that we actually featured one version of his list a couple of weeks ago. A few more surprises from last week's results include things like Dark Masters doing so well, Gammamon, as well as Black Or Greymon, which completely disappeared in terms of results in week 2. Outside of these, though, we had all manner of other kinds of decks come out of the woodwork in order to get their hands on some of those promo cards from the new Tamer Battle Packs. Everything from Hero to 7th Grade Demon Lords, and even a DM Chimera list trying to take advantage of the new Insane Synthetic Monster option card. I'm really looking forward to how these new promo cards are going to shake up the game, and if you also want to stay up to date with the latest information, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more Digimon card game content shuffled directly into your YouTube feed. I feel kind of bad. I've had the Dark Masters deck built for quite a while now, but I haven't been able to tear myself away from some of the other villain decks in like Lusamon or Bagara Army in order to actually play it. But actually, after seeing this list, I'm actually kind of intrigued. It's a pretty straightforward deck for all the folks who don't know much about it. It aims to put each of the 4 Dark Masters in your security in Machine Dramon, Piedmon, Puppetmon, and Metal Sea Dramon, and then use Apocalypmon to pull them out of security, put them into sources, and then play them down to all just attack and win the game. At first, it seems kind of like a daunting task because none of the Dark Masters can actually evolve off of anything, and so they must be played directly onto the board. The catch is that you can actually play them all at cost -5, so for 6 costs, as long as you don't have any non-Dark Masters Digimon in the battle area, though they are deleted at the end of the turn they're played. And considering the high play cost for a lot of the Digimon in this deck, you might be a little bit worried that you can only really do one thing per turn before the memory tips over and your opponent gets to take theirs. And in this case, the level 5 cards here are actually pretty useful. They allow you to search, while also at the end of turn let you play down a Dark Master as well. Keep in mind that Dark Master that comes down is actually going to be in the breeding area, so you'll be able to actually push him into the battle area next turn and then utilize him in that way. Additionally, the BT17 Mephistomon, who actually is catchable by the search effects that we just talked about, will also net you a Dark Master if he's deleted by an effect. With this being a control deck, things might feel a little bit slow during the setup phase, but keep in mind all of the Dark Masters themselves have some pretty useful disruption effects. Things like Digivolve 2, you've got Delete Unsuspended Digimon, Bottom Deck Suspended Digimon, and then preventing Digimon and Tamers from resting, depending on which of the Dark Masters you play out. And then once your Dark Masters leave the board by deletion, they're actually, instead of going to your trash, they're going to go to your security instead. So it's actually like a nice little form of recovery built into their own effects. Though keep in mind, you want to keep them in security for as long as possible. Once you have enough of them set up, it's time to play out your Apocalypmon. and he's going to take all of the Dark Masters you have, reduce his own play cost for each of the different ones that you put underneath him from your security, and then he can play them out from up underneath him, one of each Dark Master themselves, and then they all gain rush for the turn. And with each of their disruption effects that I just mentioned, in the Digivolve, deletion, bot decking, and everything like that, you get those all on play and then also on attack as well. So it's really hard for your opponent to have a board that sticks, or that just stops you from OTKing in general. And while the cost to actually get your game plan going might be a little bit high, you have a lot of really useful tools in things like Tamer cards as a way to reduce those costs and helps you bring down like the cost of every turn to something that's in the normal range for the game. Tamers like the Digimon Emperor will help to slow down your opponent when they pull out from raising if they're level 3, also netting you some additional card draw. Also, the Kari Tamer giving you +1 memory whenever your securities increase is really great, considering at the end of your turn, a Dark Master on the board will be deleted. When you think about it this way, they're like 5 cost, and you can then also offset that with the use of the 2 cost starter deck purple Matte Tamer, who whenever one of your Digimon is deleted, you also gain a memory. So in total, you're basically playing down level 6s for only 4 cost. And when things do get a little bit dicey, you also have some really useful other control tools outside of the Dark Masters cards themselves, and things like the Medieval Gammamon, a staple in mini decks in the game right now, as well as a single copy of the, what's this, BT6? Elekimon? Someone fact check me on that number right there, but I think it's BT6. But if you're looking for some more in-archetype support to help control the game, you've also got the Spiral Mountain option card delay effect, which lets you play one of your Dark Masters from your security on the board temporarily. I think I speak for everybody when I say I'm really glad they didn't bring back the old Apocalypmon archetype and give that more support, but this new one seems really, really interesting. And so if you're looking for a list to get started from, definitely give this one a try. You know, during the EX9 versus Monsters release, I really felt like the Secret Rare Kimeramon was definitely overshadowed by his counterpart in the Machine Dramon card. But thanks to the new Insane Synthetic Monster option card, looks like he may finally get his time in the limelight. As a quick refresher, the goal of the Kimeramon deck from EX9 is to put at least 7 DM trait level 4s into the trash as quickly as possible, and then you can play him out for 3 costs in order to take huge swings at your opponent's life really quickly. This list here, if my eyes are correct, features I think 14 different level 4s, and then 15 if you also count the level 5 Skullgreymon, who in his card text says he counts as level 4 for the Kimeramon's assembly effect. And thanks to useful cards like the EX1 Analog Youth alongside the training effect keyword that was released in EX9 that a lot of these cards in the deck have, it's really easy to get those cards into the trash pretty quickly. This deck also has some great disruption tools, and one of my favorite DM cards printed in the game right now, that being the level 5 version 2 Vademon, who lets you de-Digivolve and then bounce either 4 cost Digimon or Tamers to their opponent's hand. And don't forget the level 6 Blitzgreymon Ace, who's a way to do some heavy de-Digivolving while also having blocker, and then offensively, he's got Alliance to make big swings on your opponent's security as well. From there, all you need to do is play down your Kimeramon. His assembly effect makes him a 3 cost on the board, and he's also got Rush and Security Attack +1. Not to mention the myriad of effects that all the level 4 Inheritance cards give him. I'm talking everything from Jamming, Raid, Recovery, he's got Retaliation, Blocker, Piercing, and more. Not to mention he's got a nice little removal effect that when you play him, you can put an additional card underneath, and the card of that color, you can remove an opponent's Digimon of the same color on the board. To go further beyond, I think if he has 6 colors or more, you could just remove one of every color in the game. With all these effects under his belt, it really does feel like you can set up the Kimeramon in almost any way to fit any situation. And if you find that the 3 costs to play the Kimeramon after assembly is still too high, well, in comes the new Insane Synthetic Monster option card. On play, it's going to give you a quick way to cycle cards into your hand, and then on delay, you can delete a 7 cost or lower Digimon, which is pretty much any of the level 4s, or I think level 5s in this deck, with the exception of the Vademon, as a way to play down the Kimeramon for cost -3. Keep in mind, you can combine this with the assembly effect to make it a 0 cost level 5. Also, interesting little side note, this option card also works for Millenniumon, and so if anyone out there is playing Millenniumon right now, can you cook with this card? Let me know in the comments below. I'll be reading there as well. Each week I allow my champion level and higher YouTube members to vote on decks they want to see featured in these meta report videos, and this week they voted to see Ghost Game's protagonist in Gammamon. If you'd like to vote on decks that you want to see covered in these kinds of videos, as well as some other cool perks and bonuses like early access to my content, consider becoming a YouTube member as well. I want to give a big shout out to all the folks who help support the channel, and with that, let's take a look at Gammamon. Look, I loved Gammamon and Ghost Game, but the season not getting renewed, I felt spelled really bad news for all the Gammamon decks in the card game. And so I was pleasantly surprised when in BT20, the hero set, he actually appeared, and then I was even more surprised when sets following that one, he got even more support, including EX10 Sinister Order. And what's even crazier is that the support he got in those following sets was exactly what he needed. For the uninitiated, Gammamon is this little narcissistic dinosaur who loves himself so much that whenever he puts cards with his own name in text underneath himself, he becomes more powerful. Combine this with him having an array of different level 4s and like different versions of himself in different colors, you know, something like, what is it, Zoids? Where you had something like the Liger Zero, and like he had like different modes like Panzer and what was it? I can't remember. But anyway, you get the idea. Also, Zoids, great series. Watch it if you haven't. The red battle Gammamon lets you play tamers if you've got one or less on the board. You've got the Wezen Gammamon. I'm going to butcher these names. I'm so sorry. Weisen or Wezen Gammamon, who, despite having 1,000 guns on him, gives more defensive abilities in blocker and 3000 DP with the piercing and inheritance. You got the Chaos, the blue Gammamon, who gives additional card draw and then jamming and inheritance, which is super useful, as well as the red-purple Gullus Gammamon, who's able to take out some weaker threats on board. New to the deck is the EX10 Gullus Gammamon, who on play and evolve lets you trash 2 cards and then immediately take a card with Gammamon in its name and put it up underneath him. Ooh, is it name? Oh, I always mess this up. One of the hard parts about playing this deck is that some cards say Gammamon in name and some say Gammamon in text, and it's really important to know the distinction between the two. Gammamon in its name. Okay, so Gammamon in name, which essentially just refers to level 4s and below. Gammamon in text is basically anything. Gammamon in name is pretty much a level 4s. New to the deck is the EX10 Gullus Gammamon, who lets you trash 2 cards on play or evolve, and then immediately take a card with Gammamon in its name and put up underneath him as a source. Combine this with your turn effect that lets him evolve at cost -1 into a Reglismon whenever you get a Gammamon card in source, means that he can evolve immediately into level 5 when you go to the 4. It's kind of like a warp with extra steps, if you know what I mean. And this works out pretty well with the new Reglismon from EX10 because his evolve cost of 5 is pretty chonksome. The saving grace here is that he has rush and blocker, which means you can put pressure on the board even if his stack was played this turn. In addition, when you actually get to this guy, he's going to let you additionally put more cards underneath him as sources, and then at the end of the turn, if you have 5 or more source cards, you can actually attack. Honestly, I think this new Reglismon is fantastic because in the past, I thought one of the things that the deck really struggled with was whenever your opponent removes your board. Now, even with your boards removed, you can immediately put pressure back on the next turn. Also, his inheritance effect, whenever you get to your level 6 of just giving you +1 memory, is a really nice little boon as well. And speaking of the level 6s, this is where I think the deck starts to diverge from lists I've seen in the past, where instead of going the normal like in-archetype Seriesmon route that most decks do go, well, this deck has 1 copy of him. They really start to branch out with some surprises and things like Beelzemon Ace from EX10, who can delete and de-digivolve, alongside the Valkyriemon Ace, who can put down those blanket -5Ks, as well as act defensively and offensively to delete Digimon of 8K or lower, or get Sec +1. So if you're a Ghost Game fan and a Gammamon lover, feel free to take these new toys for a spin. With that, we're going to wrap up our Week 3 meta report for the EX10 Sinister Order set over here in Asia. And honestly, I didn't realize this, but like in a week is when the release of the BT23 set comes out. And I'm going to be so sad to put down Bogramon, but I'm so hyped for the new Jasmine cards. Dang, it's going to be a good time for sure. In the meantime, I'm going to get out of here. I've got to get to locals to see if I can get my hands on another Digital Gate Open promo card. Before you get out of here, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Bum, ba-dum, ba-dum, bum.